Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Elise and this is 10 to Life in case you didn't notice. My name's Annie and welcome. I hope you guys enjoy the channel. We talk everything true crime here, guys. So those of you who are existing 10 to Lifers and who have tuned in before, you already know it. You already know we're all things true crime here. But if you're stumbling on this video and this channel for the first time, that's what we do. We talk about everything true crime related. So if you enjoy today's video and case coverage and you think it's a channel that you want to support and check out again, make sure you hit that subscribe button below so that you get notified of new case videos as I post them. And guys, the case we're talking about today is, I can't believe more people aren't talking about this, truthfully. It's crazy and it's really, really sad. And not only that, because every case is sad, but this one, it's just like, there's so many inconsistencies in it, and like what happened was so devastatingly brutal that I'm so shocked more people haven't talked about this. In 2011, Jaleayah Davis was your typical 20-year-old girl living in Marietta, Ohio. She was kind, soft-spoken, and loved by those who knew her. She loved going out with her friends, she was working at a local Hollister store, and she loved spending time with her sister, Tabi. And she and Tabi were absolutely inseparable. They just enjoyed everything that life had to offer, and they always were together. Jaleayah even was thinking about possibly becoming a cosmetologist. Everything looked to appear as though, she had a bright future and there were only positive things ahead in her life. But then tragedy struck, and law enforcement deemed this horrific tragedy as an accident. But was this really an accident? Or did something more sinister happen here, and was it covered up due to people in power? So let's get right into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
On November 18th, 2011, it was just another Friday night in the area. Jaleayah decided to go out with her friends for the evening and really just relax after the week. Marietta is right on the West Virginia border, so they were going to actually go over to West Virginia from Marietta, Ohio. Jaleayah left with her friend Kristen Benchtold around 5 or 6 p.m. that evening. Kristen was a friend that she had known for a few months, but the friendship was a bit rocky. Details as to why it was rocky weren't entirely clear, and nonetheless, Jaleayah ended up planning on spending the night with Kristen. The two of them did their hair, their makeup, put their outfits together, all before heading out to their friend's house who was having a house party. Jaleayah's mom, Kim, last spoke to Jaleayah around 9 or 9:30 p.m. when she sent her a message telling her to be safe and not to drink and drive. She also told her that she loved her. And Jaleayah was still at the house partying at this time when she received this message. After the house party, they wanted to head to a bar called Nip and Q. This time, they took 3 friends with them, leaving Jaleayah's car back at the house party. The friends were Katie Nelson, Freddie Scott, and Jordan Campbell. Jaleayah really didn't know these other friends. They had all been hanging out at this house party together, and then they decided that they were going to up and go over to this other hangout place. But she did know Kristen, and it's pretty typical for college students to meet up with new people for a night out, and they meet through other people, like extensions of friends, and most college goers will say that a lot of their friends actually were met through parties, bars, and other social gatherings. I myself know that I met quite a few friends just while I was out and about. So while at Nip and Q, Kristen could not find her phone, and this caused a little bit of a frenzy, but eventually it was found. At the time, Jaleayah was dancing with a guy that she had met, named Chris Latimer. But what's interesting about this is Chris was one of these new friends, Katie. It was her ex. And apparently all of these friends were there to party and rage, because later it was said that one of the friends said that they took approximately 16 shots while they were there. But then it's a mystery from what happened between 9:30 p.m. when she got that text from her mom and 3:30 a.m. Because at 3:28 a.m. that morning, Jaleayah's sister Tabi's phone rang. It was Jaleayah, and Tabi immediately knew that something was very off. Jaleayah had asked her sister if she could come and get her at a gas station, and in the middle of that phone call, Tabi hears Jaleayah tell Kristen, her friend, "Give me my keys back." Tabi, who was with another friend at the time, of course gets ready to go and pick her sister up, but right before she starts to head out, Tabi's phone rings again at 3:33 a.m., literally 5 minutes later. And this time, Jalea sounded even more upset. She tells her sister now to pick her up at a different place. She wanted to be picked up at a rest stop that was closer to their home. Jalea tells Tabby that she will tell her what's going on when Tabby gets there, and Tabby can tell that Kristen and Jalea are fighting, just from what she's hearing in this phone call. And Jalea is hysterical, and she's telling Kristen that she's a bad friend, she's using all of these swear words, she had earlier been saying, give me back my keys, and the two of them were clearly very upset about something, and clearly arguing. Not to mention, if they had been drinking all night, and it was reported, 16 shots at that one bar, that of course the energy and emotions would be heightened. Jalea was begging her sister to hurry and pick her up, and by this point, Tabby and her friend were just a few minutes away from Jalea, literally driving over the bridge to get into West Virginia. And obviously, they were driving as fast as possible. She wanted to get to her sister and make sure that she was okay. Not even 15 minutes later, at 3:48 a.m., a 911 call is made by a truck driver who was on the road with his 12-year-old, and he sees a dead woman in the road and says that her body is absolutely mangled. And a few more calls are made, but this one specifically I'd like to go over with you. He's telling the 911 operator about the horror that he is seeing right in front of his eyes, and then he suddenly says, "Can I start stopping traffic? This might be a crime scene, right?" Knowing that this is very serious. He continues on and then says again, "Sir, this is a crime scene. I'm just positive. I see this. I see the crime scene, sir. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Police quickly arrived and, of course, started securing the scene right away. And when Tabby was arriving to the scene, she saw Jalea's car there. And as she kept going, she saw all sorts of law enforcement around. And then she saw fire truck lights shining onto a woman on the road. Tabby ran over to this woman yelling, "Is that my sister? Is that my sister?" And by this point, Jalea was not covered, leaving her body visible to her sister to where she can witness her sister's mangled body. Tabby immediately called her family, and as soon as the coroner mentioned that it was an African-American girl with a white coat, Jalea's mom, Kim, knew that her daughter had passed away. So as the investigation starts, police notice how horrific of condition that Jalea's body is in. They covered her up, but her head was decapitated. Her breast was rubbed raw as if she had been dragged by a car. Her leg was detached under the knee, tons of road rash all over her body, a broken ankle, and on top of that, she did not have any clothes on from the waist up. She also had no shoes on. So, if you're like me, you're probably wondering where the heck her clothes were. Well, they were laying on the guardrail nearby in perfect order of a bra, a shirt, and then a coat. And her coat was covered in blood, and the hood was also detached. So how weird that her clothes would be so nicely laid there, especially if they had blood on them. She didn't take them off beforehand, obviously, because there was blood all over her coat. This is a huge red flag. Jalea's car was also found 0.2 miles north of her body. Her car was on, it was in gear, the headlights were on, and the doors were locked. Now guys, this part is a little graphic. Her head was in pieces, and there was brain matter and pieces of her face on a guardrail post. It's really, really awful, guys. The driver's side airbag of the car was deployed, and the passenger window was completely shattered, and the doorpost was also cracked, and there were marks down the entire side of the car. Oddly enough, there was also blood on the trunk of her car. But really, overall, the car wasn't in that bad a shape. For a body to look the way that Jalea's did, you would think that the car and the guardrails would have way more damage than they did. And the guardrails essentially had absolutely zero damage. There were also acceleration marks leading up to Jalea's body. So could this be something a little bit more sinister, such as foul play? It is important to note that the Wood County Sheriff's Department was leading this investigation. So first off, when they left the scene, they left Jalea's bloody jacket just sitting there on the interstate. Wouldn't that be something that's usually collected as evidence? Wouldn't you want to preserve that evidence? So not only was the scene not cleared up at all, by the way, but Jalea's car wasn't properly preserved either, which you would think is so important because of the evidence on the car. They didn't keep her car covered, which would be extremely important given that her window was broken, And they were just letting all of these natural elements come in that can ruin potential evidence over time. They also failed to test the DNA that was in the car for over 5 months. The interviews of the friends and the details surrounding them is also very, very odd. So Jalea's friend Kristen, who she initially went out with that night, is the daughter of a doctor and the granddaughter of a former sheriff. When officers went to her house, her dad said that she wouldn't be speaking without an attorney. Now, my personal opinion, and I've mentioned it before, anytime you immediately lawyer up if you're innocent, it looks a little sketchy in my opinion. Although I know that a lot of people believe no matter what, you always get an attorney because you never know what the police will use against you later. So everybody, has their own opinion on that. I personally think that this is a red flag because if they're going to speak to you about your friend who is quite literally mangled on the interstate, why wouldn't you share everything that happened, whether you were drinking, fighting, whatever? Why would you immediately get an attorney? So within a few hours, she was already lawyered up. Then the other friend who they had met that evening, Katie Nelson, went in and voluntarily gave an interview. But what's weird about this interview is there is no audio or no video of it anywhere. And she is also the daughter of a former police officer. Freddie Scott, who was another friend that they met at the house party and went to the bar with, he's also the child of a former police officer. And he didn't get questioned until 2 days after Jalea's death, allowing plenty of time to either fabricate a story, get stories straight with the other friends, figure out what you're going to say. I mean, come on. So allegedly, Jordan Campbell was never actually interviewed at all, and he was the third friend that they had met that night at the house party and gone to the bar with. And all of these friends claimed that they were at McDonald's during this horrific accident after they dropped Jalea off to her car where the house party was. So as the investigation is continuing, McDonald's cameras did catch Freddie in his car going through the McDonald's drive-thru. Katie Nelson was also seen on the surveillance camera in the back seat of the car. And there was also another person in the front seat, but they haven't been able to identify who that was, yet Kristen claims that it was her. However, when interviewed, she told police what the last words were between Jalea and Tabi. How would she know that, and how would she know those words if she was at the McDonald's and not next to Jalea? Because during their McDonald's visit, Jalea's phone pinged on the interstate. So again, how would Kristen know what words were exchanged between Jalea and her sister Tabi if she wasn't with Jalea? How would she be in two places at once? Something isn't quite adding up here. They also all slept at Kristen's house, or so they say. All except for Katie. Katie slept at her ex-boyfriend Chris's house that night, and Chris is the one that Jalea was dancing with earlier. And when Chris was interviewed, he did mention the possibility of Katie and Kristen being jealous and mad at Jalea because she was dancing with him at the bar. There were also mixed stories of where Jalea was when talking on the phone to Tabi while they were leaving for McDonald's. One of them said that Jalea was in the car. Another said that she was outside of the car. Where was she? How is that such a discrepancy in the story? There were also minor details that were mixed up between tons and tons of people. And this was a very small town. Almost everyone knew of everyone and everything. Everybody was in each other's business. So the mixed details on timing, who was there, how much each person drank, and more, it's quite confusing, and it's a really deep tunnel to go down, guys. It almost seems like they all tried to talk to get their stories straight, but didn't figure out all of the questions that might be asked, then got stumped, and then everybody had a different answer for everything. So a couple of months later, on January 1st, 2012, someone made an anonymous phone call and left a message for the people working Jalea's case. The message said that Kristen and her brother were the last people to see Jalea. This person said that the two of them should be questioned because Kristen's brother allegedly did this, and it was said his family had money and that he would get away with it. Now, to be clear, I'm not sure if Kristen's brother ever was spoken to, nor has anyone else really spoken about him being involved that night. But who knows, anything could be possible. So in March 2013, a full year, more than a year after this tip came in, and well more than a year than this horrific accident happened, the death of Jalea was officially declared an accident. Law enforcement claimed that Jalea had a blood alcohol level of 0.19 and that she was holding her phone, talking to her sister while driving 70 miles per hour. They said that when she leaned down to pick up the phone after dropping it, she must have sideswiped a guardrail. This is allegedly why her airbag went off and why she went through the passenger side. So let's just pause here for a minute. If you know how an airbag works, it helps people with the impact of a crash. There is absolutely no logical way, in my opinion at least, that an airbag moving straight out onto a driver's seat would shoot someone out of the passenger window while also taking off their shoes at the same time without any physical DNA trace on them going out that window. I mean, make it make sense, guys. Make it make sense. That seems like a miracle. Not even a miracle. What are the odds of that? So, okay, let's go back to this whole police theory of this being an accident. After Jalea flies out of the car, they believe that she hit a guardrail, which then ripped her clothing off. Again, how were they then laying so perfectly on the guardrail if it literally ripped off of her body? Then she flipped back towards the car instead of over the guardrail, like she did a reverse, landed on the roof, then rolled onto the trunk, because remember, there was blood on the trunk, then possibly spun to where she fell off the trunk and her car continued down the highway, correcting itself. Guys, I'm not making this up. So according to them, Jalea was then hit by a tractor trailer in the passing traffic lane. I mean, come on. After the cause of death was released and the case was closed, Kristen's lawyer handed over Jalea's keychain that Tabi had given to her. When Jalea was yelling to give back her keys to Kristen, could she have been talking about this keychain? Was it not her car keys? Was it the keychain instead? And why did Kristen even have this keychain all of this time? After that, all of the information also soon started to get released in this case. The cause of death is just absolutely ridiculous in my opinion, and we can pretty much debunk it with just a few simple facts of evidence found and ignored, really, when determining the cause of death. First, we know that there was blood on the underside and the front of the car. The theory that law enforcement came up with never included how blood got under the car, nor did it include how blood got on the front of the car, because remember, they said instead of hitting the guardrail, she flew back, then she hit the roof, then she got rolled and hit the trunk. It makes no sense. And the amount of blood on the road and the shape of it looks like her body may have been dragged. There was also no DNA on the airbag. So if her face or her body had slammed into the airbag and then it projected her out the window, there would definitely be DNA. They also claim that Jalea was alone in this because the passenger airbag would have gone out. However, when it was inspected, the passenger airbag was said to be defective, which maybe that's the reason why it didn't go off, not because there wasn't a passenger in the car. Jalea's hair was also completely free of broken glass, and there was no broken glass at the scene of the crime. So if she went through the window, like law enforcement said, she most definitely would have shards of glass in her hair. And what's even crazier is in her car there was a drop of somebody else's blood that was found. So why didn't this immediately set off alarm bells for law enforcement? Jalea's mom, Kim, and her sister want nothing more than to have this case reopened and figure out what the heck really happened to Jalea. Jalea's grandparents are getting older and they would like to be able to move away to be by Tabi. However, her mom, Kim, and her parents are staying in Marietta with the hopes that Jalea's case will be reopened and justice will be served. So my question for you is, how was this case closed with this many holes in it? And not only holes, but this much evidence that negates what they were trying to say happened. What really happened to Jalea, and who do you think was responsible? And do you think that the friends having close family in law enforcement perhaps played a part in how this case ended, with nobody talking, with nobody being charged, with them ruling it as an accident, even though it definitely doesn't look like an accident? Because aside from everything that we know, okay, let's just play devil's advocate here for a second. Let's assume what the cops are saying truly did happen. That she dropped her phone, she was speeding down the interstate, she went to get it, she hit the guardrail, she skids down the interstate, she crashed, the airbag comes out, it ejects her out of the passenger window, she flies back over to the car, rolls back on the trunk, hits the ground and hits the pavement, and then a tractor trailer speeds by, runs her over, and mangles her body. Let's just say that is in fact what happened. Hard to believe, but let's just say it is. If her clothes were stripped off of her when she went out the window, like police are saying, tell me how they got folded perfectly and in a perfect stack with blood on them after she was laying mangled in the middle of the road. How did they get folded so nicely on the guardrail? Tell me. Make it make sense, guys. Make it make sense. I don't get it. Make it make sense. Unless they are trying to suggest that maybe the person who was driving the tractor trailer maybe got out of their car and tried to see if Jalea was okay, tried to save her, but then realized she was deceased, but then picked up her clothes and folded it and put it on the guardrail. Like, in what planet does that make sense? If you guys have an alternative answer to where that actually computes in your mind as to how that's possible, please let me know. Maybe my brain is just working overtime today and I can't think of like how that's possible, but it just seems absolutely ridiculous to me. So let me know what your thoughts are on this case below, guys. I am very interested to learn. And again, the brutality of this case, I can't believe more people aren't talking about it. And it's now been over 10 years. And this family just wants justice. They want the case reopened. They want people to be looked into a little bit more. It just feels all too suspicious. The circumstances, the kids who have parents in family and law enforcement, the argument earlier in the night because she was dancing with the ex-boyfriend, who then the ex-boyfriend spent the night at the girl's house that night and didn't hang out with Jaleayah. I don't know. Something fishy here, guys. Something smells fishy. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the case coverage. Please share this link where you can, guys, because, again, this family wants this reopened. They want answers, and they ultimately want justice for Jaleayah. So please share this where you can. All right, guys, until the next case, stay safe. Bye.